you're willing to make it this petty and small, man.
You changed the meaning of my statement. No, but I think it's indicative of the broader conversation we're having.
Because I know you don't want to do this.
I know it's indicative of the broader conversation that we're having.
Wants to hear
Wait,
that, right?
unironically, you need to stop interrupting. Like, you need to chill, okay? Or we'll just end it, because you talk over everything I say. I think it's indicative of the broader conversation, because you just said that I don't listen to you, but then you attempted to repeat what I said, but change the meaning of what I said. So I don't think you're actually listening to what I say. I think you feel threatened. I think you're out in the savannah right now, okay? You hear the rustling of bushes behind you. You don't know if it's a predator, okay? You're very jumpy, and you don't actually want to listen. So let's just leave this aside. I don't even know if we're still talking about the white nationalism thing, or are we? Uh-oh, did he leave?
You just ended on a really weird note because you didn't really know what the point was you're trying to make there.
No, I don't. I have no idea where I'm completely lost. So help me out. Are we on the white nationalism thing?
Kind of, sort of. Yes.
So your argument is that we should let you go because you people suck. My definition of
race realism is incorrect, and I'm willing to move on and say, listen, you have a different, more strict or just different version of what race realism is. I'm perfectly happy to just leave that there.
Okay,
you know,
that's fine. So your argument for white nationalism is that you think we should let you go because you all suck. So, like, it's to our benefit that you go.
That is actually a part of the argument, yes. I could explain to you why it's beneficial for us, but I think it's a better strategy to try to convince the person why it's best for them.
Okay, sure. You know what? Sure, I'll take that. Okay.
You can't just be. Okay, cut me off again. What are you gonna say?
No, you win. Okay, if that's the broader argument, then I'm willing to accept those premises. I mean,
yeah, because it's really hard to argue against. Like I've never met a leftist who's been able to defeat me on that. Working from that axiom, if this is actually beneficial for both of us,
it's not actually.
How can I really argue against you?
So just so you know, it's not actually beneficial. The idea of normalizing territory being seceded to ethno-states just because the people who want to live there is odious would be ridiculous. Also, we wouldn't allow you to keep that infrastructure. Sorry, the property within West Virginia.
You just said though that based on that, I have to agree with you or something along those lines. And then you just said, wait, no.
So the reason why is because we were already relying on a bunch of ridiculous
preconceptions. Not just say, yeah, based on that, I'll agree with you.
Yeah,
if
then
you're saying
I'm trying to elaborate.
Shit.
Oh, please. So the property within West Virginia is government property. The people within West Virginia are American citizens. So you're not getting to take those. We're not getting the land either. All of this is based on a series of preconceptions that I wouldn't necessarily agree to. But if you could convince me, as the poobah of America, to give up a state, its infrastructure, and its people, and all that being laid out, I still don't think it's moral for you to disallow people from moving to this new country that you have created because of their racial group. But I mean, at this point, we're so many layers removed, like, I would just invade anyway. I don't know. That's why I kept trying to bring up the Atlantean.
Let's not move, because you made a really good point there, Vosh. And you made this point earlier, and in fact, I actually addressed it, but I just want you to know that I am addressing this point. You're saying, okay, wait, hold on. We cannot concede any land. I find it morally egregious to have a section of the United States separated and to not allow minorities in. No, we simply cannot allow this to happen. Now, the counter argument to that would be, if we somehow were to win an election in that state, meaning that we got into a governor, over 50% of the population wants this, then would, based on, you know, that, I guess, that democratic principle, would you not say that it would be morally right for that state to secede if the majority of the people there want it?
Nope.
What if it was a super majority? What if it was 90%? What if the government did some calculations? What if the government said this is an economic drain, and the only reason why a person would want to hold on to this is for egoic type of reasons that extend towards the nation, i.e. nationalism, which I know you're not. If the government could look at a state and say it's a net drain, we're literally paying for this state to keep it afloat, and they want to leave, and they want to take the white nationalists with them.
The only argument that you could make in that case would be one where I believe that secession for that state would not only be more democratically representative for the people who live there, but it would also free them from oppression, a la like Kurds in Iraq, for example. In those cases, I would be in favor of secessionary action. But given the fact that the people in the fine state of West Virginia and white people at large are not facing any oppression they're trying to escape from, I wouldn't lend any credence to that argument.
Well, I would say that we shouldn't be the dictator of who is oppressed. If a group of people are saying we're oppressed, we're not seeking vengeance, we want separation, I find it very hard to believe that they would just be making this up.
No,
And I would
no,
like
wait.
to believe
Having met white people, yeah, they make up the
coming,
oppression all the time. Yeah, having met white people, trust me, they do the victim police thing quite a bit.
I do believe that it's logical to assume that somebody could be making up oppression if they're trying to seek penalties or vengeance. You know, I want this guy to go to jail. I want him fired. I want to raise something, anything like that. You know, I can see situations where people make these things up. I want more from the government. But if you're simply just asking to leave, to be left alone, to literally take one of the least desirable pieces of land, because that's still better than living in
Our
New York,
land.
Toronto, or
You're
Chicago.
still taking something from us.
Well, I know you're not this like national. You don't really care so much about the size of the land or anything like that. If 98% of the people want to leave and the land isn't really resourceful, or again, it's an economic drain. It's filled with people you don't even want to associate with. They're always going to vote Republican. I don't see why you wouldn't want to allow this to happen, as opposed to eternally fighting with these people forever on the internet. But then
It
something
won't be
else clicked in
forever.
my head.
We're winning.
And
Every generation.
I want to highlight this point just before I pass it to you. And if you want to comment on that or anything I said previous, it's up to you. But I realized, you know what? The majority of white nationalists and communists, whether it's somebody like you or Richard Spencer, they actually don't want a solution. They wouldn't want something like this because they lose their enemy and therefore they lose their job. It's kind of like how a cop doesn't, you know, he wouldn't think this way, but I mean, if there was no crime, a cop wouldn't have a job. So if there is no white nationalists, if there are no fascists, Vosh becomes irrelevant. If there is no communists, if whites have their white ethnos say, Richard Spencer becomes irrelevant. And I realized, you know what? It's actually in your best interest as a businessman to have the eternal enemy in which you can always fight.
Very wise. So, first of all, considering the fact that I cover issues going on in other countries, and I also argue with liberals domestically, I feel like I'd be doing just fine either way. Second of all, no. Whether or not it provides tax benefits to the government, West Virginia is property of the government. That land belongs to the government. And furthermore, as far as I'm concerned, by way of being born into this country, every American citizen has a right to travel its lands, including whatever territory you would want to have ceded for your white nationalist vacation spa party. I would never be in favor of any secessionary activity based on people wanting to form an ethno-state. Not even for an oppressed group. Like, even if you had a real claim to oppression. No. Because I don't like ethno-states. Why? Why black people should be able to move into your house? Into your bathroom?
Well, here, I've done my best to stay away from the Canada thing, like you suggested. However, I'm a Canadian. I do care more about, say, white Canadians than white Americans. Like I should. I believe white Americans should care more about white Americans. And I've looked at the Canadian landscape, and I believe Prince Edward Island is the best place that we need to move to secede. It gives us our best chance, our best option. Now, we have historic precedents for secession, for separation. If you look back to the 1994 Quebec referendum, they were 10,000 votes away from leaving the Greater Canada. Now,
as an
think about
ethno-state?
this. Oh, as a French Quebec nationalist state, which is, you know, kind of like Israel. Is it an ethno state? Is it a Jewish nationalist state? Whatever. It's clearly for the identity of this group in which they wish to preserve.
That
now,
wouldn't
think
have
about
been
this,
an
Vosh.
ethno
No,
state.
before I just need to finish this point before you go in, because all of these details really matter. Quebec is the second most populated state or province in Canada. It has a huge population, cultural significance, economic significance. It's plastered right in the middle of Canada, and because the people voted 55 to 45 that they wanted a vote to leave the country, the Canadian government said, yes, it's our moral obligation to allow these people to have that vote. Now, that would mean that Quebec would essentially be isolated as a Quebec nation, and they are very fascist in terms of implementing their pro-French policies. It's quite remarkable, actually. And, you know, I don't blame them because they want to preserve their French identity. So they were 10,000 votes away from leaving Canada. And here I am just arguing for little tiny old Prince Edward Island to leave, and I'm expecting to get way more than just 55% of the support. I think as white nationalism grows and we can actually focus our efforts towards migrating our people towards a certain area, not just white flighting towards random areas, again, staying in your hair, I realize, hey, it's in all of our best interest to focus our efforts towards a common goal and make both sides happy. And as a non-French Canadian, if the Frenchies want out and they want their own country, fuck them, let them have it. Like, why, it's kind of this funny thing that we're in this eternal argument of like, no, you should like us, we're the right ones. We're never gonna get anywhere. We're gonna be fighting for fucking decades.
Okay, so I can't speak to Canadian legal precedent. I don't know what that had to do with any of my responses. I still don't think it's ethical to form an ethno-state.
Well, what I'm arguing is that when I believe that there's precedent, I believe, like, I said I can't only talk about America, but Canada found it morally acceptable because because one of the provinces, the majority of them wanted the option to potentially leave, and that vote settled a lot.
First of all,
okay, again, it's not necessarily an ethno-state.
The fact that another country wants to do a thing
that I could provide,
hold on,
which is
extremely
similar, Vosh,
that another
and there's other
country,
points to it.
the fact that another country wants to do a thing isn't an argument. I would be like, hey, I don't like it when you behead gay people, and you'd be like, in Saudi Arabia, I could go over there and I could behead gay people. Like, okay, still don't think it's right. Second of all, no, what Quebec wanted was not an ethno-state. They were looking for sovereignty from the state of Canada. Which I have my own problems with that movement, but it was not an ethno-state. Not to say I'm a fan of French Canadians, mind you. I think they were despicable.
Would you say that? Would you say that? Okay, I know what the counter argument would be, because you say that they wouldn't just limit it to ethnically
the argument
French
is that
peoples.
ethno-states are bad. Why should people of a given race not be allowed within the borders of whatever nation you want to form? Why not?
Oh, I get that, and I'm not pretending that my previous argument addresses this particular point, but it's going back to what I was talking about of whether or not democracy should rule within a democratic nation. And yes, maybe it's not an American.
Democracy doesn't mean you can do anything and everything. You can't
No,
democratically. It's not moral to
but
democratically decide to genocide a population. So ethno-states are moral.
And that's a huge straw man, because nobody is suggesting that.
No, what I'm saying is that the fact that you arrive at a conclusion democratically doesn't mean that it's moral. So I don't think ethno-states are moral.
I never said that it was. I'm saying in this specific case, which is very, very close related to what I'm talking about, we have a much larger province with more people.
What does this have to do with the argument that I'm making?
I am trying to explain, but you keep cutting me off before I'm at the final point, which will then provide some sort of clarity or will illuminate something different to you. I am not saying to you, Vosh, that this destroys your moral argument or any of that. What I'm saying is that this bolsters my claim that if a state or province wishes to secede, and the majority of that state or province which wishes to secede, they should be allowed to, and governments, specifically Canada, have allowed this. And with Texas specifically, there is that chance. With California, there are those talks, even though it hasn't happened. It's at least on the table, so to say, of discussion, unlike raising Atlantis in the middle of the ocean.
Just because a country does a thing doesn't mean it's right or wrong to do that thing. I don't know why you're trying to bridge the Izot gap.
Do you at least now see the point that I'm making?
If your point was that secessions happen sometimes, then I never disagreed with that. My argument is that I don't want it here in America, and that ethno-states are immoral. You keep this has nothing to do with.
No, what I'm trying to argue here is that
what point?
The democratic will of a state should matter. It's not the Trump winning argument. It's not the only thing that I have. But
not
it
for
is an argument.
ethno-states.
It's
no.
like, when a lawyer provides historical precedence for his case.
Not for ethno-states.
That's what it's like. That's exactly what it's like.
Not for ethno-states. You can't democrat your way into an ethno-state.
They often will.
He's actually not going to answer, is he?
Perfect, dude.
Wait, I need you to actually address. Hold on.
But you're.
My concern is that ethno-states are immoral. Now, we can talk about that, but you keep going off on these insane tangents about, well, what about Quebec? That's kind of an ethno-state. Well, there are countries that have democratically decided to secede. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
If I just made that point and you said, okay, that's an interesting case, but that doesn't mean that ethno-states are morally sound.
I said that. Do you listen to what I'm saying? I said that multiple times.
But that isn't the only. You kept going on about how my point serves no place within the conversation.
So, and that is
the part that we are currently bickering about, Vosh, which I don't even know if you understand that that's what we're doing.
Do you want to discuss why I think ethno-states are just immoral, regardless of whether or not there are precedents for them or they're arrived at democratically.
Sure, yeah, why
Again,
not?
I don't know why the fuck we're talking about Quebec. Okay, why should you
Again,
have...
see, you throw that little comment. I don't know why we're talking about Quebec. Do I
I
have to explain
don't!
to you again why we're talking about Quebec? Do I?
Do you what?
Do I need to explain to you one more time why I brought up Quebec?
No,
Bosh?
you don't. You don't. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay,
Don't
thank
remind
you,
me,
thank
okay?
you.
Please,
Continue.
please.
No, I'll mute myself and you can continue. I'm glad that your audience could see that little display from you. That little poke at the end with the Quebec thing.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Ethno-states are bad. That's my argument. Continue.
Really? That's your argument? Ethno-states are bad.
We can talk. I mean, do you want to defeat her to that? We can talk about the specifics on that if you want. But yeah,
Okay,
I think
I'll
that it's
explain to you why
wrong.
ethno-states are good. It satisfies both parties in terms of the pro-white or anti-white community. I don't want to get too tied down in labels and how we describe those two things. Satisfies both parties. Both parties get what they want. White people are left alone. You guys get the evil boogeyman, white nationalists, out of your hair. This is
We're
going
not
to
talking about what
affect the
I
voting
want.
block
We're
for you
talking
in a
about
positive
ethno-states
way.
in general. So why should it be okay?
Are you really going to say what I just said has
To
nothing to
racially
do with ethno-states
discriminate?
in general? Is that really what you're trying to say, Ravash?
So
what I
why
was
should
just
it be
talking about has
okay to
nothing to do
racially
with ethno-states in
discriminate?
general?
Chill. Why should it be
I never said it's okay.
to racially discriminate against people with regards to their ability to live in a given neighborhood or country?
Well, we do it all the time.
That's not an answer to my question. Why?
Okay, well, what if I said that it's a natural human inclination based on survival mechanisms?
Okay, so that was
Want
a
me
lot
to
of
continue to
buzzwords
expand
for
and
that was a
expand
lot of
and expand?
buzzwords for an argument I've heard many times, which is because tribalism exists, therefore racism
Yeah,
is
you're bringing
natural.
up these like elementary points, which like
Which you
it's
can't
just
even answer.
embarrassing.
You can't even respond to the simple ones. I feel
I
like I'm
just
pulling
answered
teeth.
to it. I'm asking you, like, okay, like, how much of an in-depth answer do you want to this very obvious thing? It's like me asking you, why is communism good, Vosh? Like, you just kind of
Wait,
look at me like,
I could
really?
answer that. Wait, I wouldn't like freak out and start diving into a bunch of subtopics.
And I
If a
did
person
answer
asked-
it, and then I'm like, does that satisfy you? Do you want me to continue?
No, you
It's not like
answered.
I'm
Wait,
avoiding
so
the
a
question.
reminder. You answered
want
and
me to
you
keep
said
answering
because
you
it's a
why
natural
ethno-states are
product of
good?
biological impulses for survival. And then I pointed out that you're about to make the same mistake every dumb fuck Nazi I talk to makes. You're going to say that
I'm a
because
dumb fuck Nazi, we're
tribalism
ad
exists.
hominems. That's a clear indication that you're doing well in a debate, by the way.
Because you think that tribalism exists, therefore racism is natural. And then you follow that up with the implied normative argument that because racism is natural, which you haven't demonstrated, by the way, that it's okay to legislate based on racism. And then you would have to make the additional normative argument that not only is legislating based on racism acceptable, but that you could do so to the extent to completely preclude a person from entering a country. But you just kind of smugly left the first part out there as though that was a total argument. So racism is not natural. That's my counter-argument. I can demonstrate it too. People are more racist the less they interact with other racial groups. People in the inner city, people who live in Seattle, LA, New York, less racist by far than people who live out in white, homogenous areas that never come into contact with minorities. Racism is a product of ignorance, my friend, and if you expose people to other kinds of people, everyone realizes, hey, we're all people.
Okay, well, I don't believe I started any of my points off with saying people should be racist and racism is natural. I never even used the word tribalism, but I could see how you would just kind of make that connection. I'm kind of confused. Like, are you saying that I don't genuinely or sincerely want to be in a white ethno state, or are you trying to convince me as to why I shouldn't want it?
No, I'm saying that there's no... You said, why is it okay to racially discriminate for people entering the country? And your answer was, because we're relying on the, like, survival differences that we arrived at naturally, or something like that. So I'm pointing out that, no, that has nothing to do with racism. So I've provided a defeater, or at least a counter-argument to your position.
There's so many reasons as to why people would want to live in a homogenous area, right? Like, I could talk about...
Wait, that's not the point we're making. The point was that you made a point and I made a counterpoint. So do you make a counterpoint, or
I don't want to pivot away from it. I'm not trying to do that. Like,
okay.
I'm
So then we dropped the
anchor down
initial
on
point
that
you
point.
had, which was the natural survival instinct thing. So Next argument then. Why is it
No,
okay to keep...
I'm not dropping that. I never said that I was. I even said that I don't want to pivot away from it, and I never said that I was conceding to it. I just simply said that it's that in conjunction with many other things, just for that point of clarification. Um, I mean, that shouldn't be too hard to understand, right?
I love you. I hope you know that. You know that, right?
Well, you say that to all of your Nazi guests, and you also call them my white brother, trying to get some sort of connection in with them.
Well, what I'm mostly
Earlier, I
doing
said
is
something
making
to you,
fun
like,
of them.
very wise, and you seem very sincere in that. There's been a couple times where you do these kind of things that I've noticed. But anyways,
well, it's a
now I
rhetorical
forgot what I
strategy.
was
I'm trying to
say. You're
remind you.
asking me why is ethno-states? Why do
No,
I think
no, wait.
ethno-states are good for
we
white
can't.
people?
We can't keep doing.
No,
we
I don't
can't
want-
keep meeting like this. We can't keep doing this.
Take it whatever direction you want, man. I'm free at this point. Like, I'm not tied to any avenue. Take me
No,
down
it's just
whichever
this
road
conversation is agonizing. Do you feel the agony? Do you feel the pain? Is it just me? Am I getting old? How old are you?
I feel like for mine, it's been quite a success. There's been a lot of things that have gotten you to admit, a lot of things that have gotten you to not argue strongly. You've been the one to freak out, raise your voice, call me names. You'll even say things like, dude, you gotta stop freaking out. And I'm just sitting there.
Well, the main reason I
just
said
you.
that is because you don't stop talking, and when you do, it's rarely about the thing we were last talking about. So I really hate muting people. I wish people could know how much, anytime I mute a person, it's because for 3 minutes beforehand, I'm staring at the mute button with, like, veins bulging out of my forehead. My hand is, like, shaking as I hold the mouse. I like, anytime I do it. But some people talk so incessantly, and every time they talk, it's like a fractal dipshit, like mirage, where I'm looking through a kaleidoscope, millions of fractally bad arguments expanding infinitely in all directions. So sometimes it feels necessary. Was there a point you felt like you got me on?
Do you mind if I respond to that?
Sure.
Do you mind if I respond to that? Okay. I've watched your debates with Destiny, and I've even watched people who've analyzed and done reviews of your debates, and both of you clearly think the other person is interrupting each other. Virtually all debates, if you ask Stefan Molyneux or Sargon or whoever, they all say, the other person wouldn't let me speak. They just kept talking over me.
That's true.
Even the last debate that you had with another Canadian. So, like, I mean, I wouldn't give a fuck if your audience agreed with you if you think this. This is just what happens. So I try not to get too bogged down in conduct and let me finish and let's argue forever about that. I just want to kind of zip through points and take it from there, but we both end up saying paragraphs, and I feel like I'm focused on the second point in the paragraph. You might be focused on the fourth, and then we don't match up. You want me to go somewhere that I'm not going. I want you to go somewhere you're not going, and this happens all the time in debates.
Oh, that is definitely true. And unless somebody actually goes back and records or parses out information, it's impossible to really know who interrupted more or who spoke more. But I still feel like you might have, my friend. What points did you think you got me on? Was it when I acknowledged that black people have darker skin than white people sometimes, or...?
Well, no, see, again, that's another thing. You'll just point to that, the most simplest, frivolous aspect of race realism and say, oh, what, just because we have different levels of melanin and whatever, that you think I'm conceding this huge point? Well, the fact that there's utility in race in terms of understanding society, making predictions, being able to categorize people into different classifications so that, again, there's usefulness in terms of understanding these various groups of people. I feel like I was quite successful in proving that.
But I want reparations. I would have already agreed with that. We need to know... Wait, anybody who believes in intersectional feminism will recognize that you need to recognize the racial constructs as they exist today in order to know when people are being oppressed. Race blindness actually enables racism because when you can't see colors, you can't see patterns along those colors. So, but I don't know if that's a point you got me to concede on. I already believe that. I just don't believe that you can find any inherent differences between the different racial groups that extend beyond the obvious phenotypical skin color, nose shape, eyelids, that kind of stuff. Like, very obvious. Hair density, I guess. Persian guys, they grow mustaches at 15. Very blessed.
Yeah, this is actually a point that we should have expanded on more. I don't, for instance, know the difference between a Jack Russell's brain and a Rottweiler. I could not be able to tell you, Vosh, the genetic components, this is an example, and it will flesh out my thinking here, my reasoning. Different dogs we know have different levels of intelligence.
Dogs
Jack Russells are
were
smarter.
bred
Let me,
for
Javash,
intelligence.
you said whatever about the
But you're
interrupting,
saying a
right?
dumb thing again. Dogs
That,
were
okay,
bred
it
to
doesn't
have
matter.
different
In
levels of
debates,
intelligence.
you are not the dictator of that. If you had a moderator, maybe they could, but you don't.
Wait,
so you
I'm
don't
the one
get
streaming. I kind of am the dictator of that, though. But like again,
I've
you're
seen
doing it
people
again,
on your
though.
stream literally suggest you need a moderator, and that will help you out with this. But you don't get to
what
just
I
say
mean,
what you're
though.
saying is dumb. Shut
The
up.
dog
That
breeds
is,
you're
I
talking
don't
about were
somebody on one of my
literally
streams, man.
bred to be different levels of intelligence.
And you can make this point when I'm finished making mine.
But then it goes on
so hard for your
forever.
immature,
No, this is what
little...
it's
no,
forever.
It
And now
you interrupting makes it go on forever, Vosh.
You'll say
and
a
your
dumb
chat knows
thing,
that.
and then I have to respond to that, and then we argue about that for 30 minutes. But then you say another dumb thing.
That's what a lot of your channel
it's
is
forever.
when you debate other people. I mean, look at every single one of your debates with the white nationalists. It's all titled like crazy guy, stupid dude, whatever. You want that to happen. So you're being totally disingenuous right now.
No, that's not
Even
true.
If I were
like
doing
the
that and acting like
arguments.
an idiot, that would only benefit you anyways,
No,
Vosh.
I like the argument.
The only reason for you ever to want to dominate or pivot or anything is because you don't like where it is right now. It's the only logical conclusion.
So wait, can you not use dogs as an example? I think it's disannounced.
And you'll just laugh at the camera and you'll do these little things because you know you've already won the debate.
I think I'm about to use another nasty debate trick, by the way. Can you guess which one I'm about to use?
The hang up on the guy you're...
All right. You know, I saw this America's Promise video from like a week ago. The only reason I picked it is because the first slideshow image that it skips to when you hold your thumb over the thumbnail, or you hold your mouse over the thumbnail, is like slavery, and it's called America's Promise. And I wanted to know where they're going with this. Are they going to talk about like 40 acres and a mule, the promise we broke? I want to see. Let's go.
I want to tell you something that
Hey, hold on. I just want to say, you know we're talking about race issues in PragerU today because they found a black guy, all right? This guy's about to say some insane shit because they knew that if they had a white guy saying it, it was going to be... Keep in mind, the people here, I don't think they write the scripts. The people speaking don't write the scripts. They're given the scripts by... I think that for a lot of them, Dennis Prager actually writes them himself. Yeah, so... the person you see speaking is just the spokesman for whatever PragerU wants to say. But all right, hit me with it. Maybe it'll be a good point, you know?
everybody once knew, and now many have either forgotten or never learned. Pay very close attention.
Okay.
America promises you freedom.
Cool.
America does not promise you love. Let's start with the freedom part. It's all right there in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Then why were there still slaves after the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? Wait, you can't say it's all right there when these documents were ratified and they still had millions of slaves. That's a little, seems a little contradictory if you think about it for a hot second.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Free speech.
Oh.
Freedom to practice the religion of your choice. The purpose of government is to protect your freedom, period.
Okay.
America was a rough and tumble place in its early days. It still is. Let's hope it always remains so. You don't want to live in a country where all your needs are taken care of.
Wait, are we really not going to acknowledge the slavery bit? You can't say, oh yeah, dude, freedom? It's all right here, and the document was ratified during the slave days by slave owners. You can't, we're just skipping right by that, I guess, but all right. So now we have Secret Service agents. These are Secret Service agents, right? I mean, they look like them. This is what I pay my taxes for. Every U.S. citizen should have 2 Secret Service agents dedicated exclusively to feeding them grapes, fanning them, washing them, etc., etc.
Care of by the government. That's not how you become great. That's how you become dependent, vulnerable, and truly oppressed.
So this is a really common conservative narrative. If the government does anything for you, that will make you, like, actually oppressed and dependent on the government. And this logically fails in so many ways. So I'm going to bust out some Ben Shapiro type, like, facts and logic right here. First of all, in most measures of democracy, European countries actually have a higher freedom index, and they have more robust welfare states. So that kind of debunks it right there. But additionally, what are we talking about when we say provided by the government? What does it mean? The government provides you freedom. What does that actually mean? Like, really think about that for a second. When the government, how do you provide freedom? What does that mean? They just let you do whatever? Well, if that's the case, what's the point of the state at all? Does it... what is it doing? What is the actual thing that it's doing? Well, the answer to that is that, unfortunately, rights, like a right to freedom, they don't just exist in and of themselves. They have to be enshrined. They have to be defended. This is the key difference between positive freedom and negative freedom, which is something that conservatives pretend doesn't exist. The idea of, I forget which one is which always, but the two different types of freedom are essentially this. One freedom is you can do whatever you want. And the other, or more accurately, we won't stop you from doing what you want to do. And the other type of freedom is you have the ability to do that which you want to do. Negative freedom is the one conservatives care about. Freedom from interference. The state can't prevent you from doing X or Y. But positive freedom is what they never talk about. The ability to be able to do the things you want to do. Guys, what freedoms do you have as a person with no money whatsoever? Well, legally, you have the exact same freedoms as anybody else. The state is equally incapable of preventing you from doing X or Y. But in a positive sense, you have no freedom because everything costs money. Everything. You don't have the freedom to eat. You don't have the freedom to live. You don't have any freedom at all. So that's the reason why sometimes welfare from the state makes you more free. Because if you're given money to buy food, you now have the freedom to not starve. Not only is there not a law against not starving, but now you have the ability to push for freedom. This is the critical distinction here. Welfare makes you more free, unless you think you're free living 3 jobs, or working 3 jobs trying to save up enough money to pay back college debt and pay for your kids' food and school supplies. Is that freedom? You can do anything, hypothetically, but you only have the ability to do nothing. All right.
America is a land of opportunity for anyone of any color. Just follow some basic rules. Get an education, work hard.
Really had to throw in of any color there too, just to like preempt that one too, you know?
Act responsibly, and you'll have a good shot at a good life. But you might also fail. You might fail a bunch of times and then succeed. Or you might succeed and blow it all. That's America. A never-ending dance of risk and reward, all made possible by freedom.
What if you could make the risk smaller so that even if your business venture doesn't succeed, you don't like die? And what if the reward was easier to get? Because lately it's been harder and harder to get. Wealth inequality is growing more and more. The newest generations have a smaller and smaller proportion of the wealth available in this country. If you disguise all economic activity of risk and reward, you can say this for anyone. Guys, do you know what else was risk and reward? Medieval Europe. Well, you know, you could risk it all and raise a peasant army to go attack a local nobleman, seize their castle and their treasury, and use the wealth to pay a private army. Then the king will benight you and ratify you, and that's the reward. But sometimes you just die, you know? Sometimes you can make this argument about anything. You can make this argument about the Egyptian pharaohs, risk and reward. All of life is risk and reward. Using these vague generalities is just a way to get away with not addressing any of the actual material realities of the situation, which is why PragerU videos never use actual numbers, by the way.
Made possible by freedom. Freedom is America's source of power. And the denial of that power to black people and others at the inception of this nation and for nearly 200 years after its founding remains a stain and a source of pain.
What? Wait. Hold on. The argument that slavery leaves a stain on America is something that Prager University has explicitly argued against. A stain, as in a lasting effect? That's what a stain is? It stays. That's the point of the term. Did they just contradict themselves? Yeah, they did. Other PragerU videos have explicitly said, this is all in the past. Slavery, you know, we did, it was a mistake. We did it, now we're back better than ever. We've got rid of slavery faster than anyone, which isn't true, by the way. Yeah, I guess whatever arguments work best for whatever video you're using.
Yes, some of the founders had slaves, but almost all of them knew that it was morally wrong and would one day end.
That's worse.
When Thomas Jefferson wrote the words, all men are created equal, the slavery question was resolved.
Wait, no, wait, what? So it was resolved, comma, asterisk, 150 years in the future? Wait, no, not 150 years. Yeah, like 100 years in the future? What? What? Dog, white people feeling bad about some shit 100 years ago doesn't mean that the racism didn't just... Did they, like, Abraham Lincoln, he, like, did his Gettysburg Address, and he was like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, this basically already happened, so... What? This is incoherent. It's a stain, but also was resolved. They knew it was wrong, but then they fixed it, but not for 100 years? This is meaningless. This is absolutely meaningless.
The only issue was how and when. And it took a lot longer than it should have. But it did end. And a lot of good people died on the battlefield to see that it did.
So wait, if we lived in a brutal dictatorial regime, and a million years ago they said all people are created equal, but then they continue to, like, rigorously oppress massive swaths of the population, is that, like, a resolved issue? Like, have you ever read the Soviet Union's charter? Does that mean none of the shit that happened afterwards mattered because they were committed to the principles of equality beforehand? That's a question I'd like to ask them. Hey, the charter of the Constitution of the Soviet Union was pretty progressive. Does that mean like, oh yeah, the Holodomor, the oppression of the ethnic minorities, you know, whatever. Also, notice the language used here. This is very funny to me. Hold on.
And a lot of good people died on the battlefield to see that it did.
No mention that it was the Confederates fighting for slavery or the Northerners fighting against it, okay? Admitting, by the way, that the Civil War was about slavery, but don't want to alienate our audience by pointing out that this is how small the conservative brain is. You can acknowledge 98% of the information surrounding a historical fact, but as long as you don't fill in the last piece, your audience won't connect the dot on them. I bet you conservatives are watching this just nodding like, But in the next video, they'll go back to saying that it was a war of northern aggression or that it was fought over states' rights, and they'll go, as long as you don't directly say it to them, the explicit language, the Confederates fought a war to preserve slavery. As long as you don't say that, then they'll just continue nodding along.
And when it ended, giants like Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass understood that black Americans would have to succeed on their own as free men and women.
Yeah. Yes, Frederick Douglass, known advocate for libertarian free market economics with no broader social support. Not to speak, by the way, didn't Booker T and Frederick Douglass fight against each other all the time? Frederick Douglass spent his entire life demanding the state do more for black people because an unbelievable harm must be remedied with an unbelievable good. Like, again, they can only say this about these people because they're dead now. If PragerU existed 100 years ago, they would have been calling both of these guys the N-words. Oh, it's W.E.B. Du Bois fought with Booker. I gotcha.
And women. They had no illusions that the government would save them. They only want...
I can't... Dude, the reason they wrote that was they were saying, like, when they did say this, it was like, the government is so fucked and so racist that we have no choice but to act on our own. But they wrote extensively on the extent to which the government's preferential treatment of white people had led to them being preferred in society.
They only wanted what all Americans should ever want the government to do: protect their freedom. But the founders never promised.
How do you get your freedom? Hold on. Frederick Douglass advocated for some pretty spectacular stuff. Frederick Douglass on revolution and integration. Yeah, Frederick Douglass was had some thoughts on this. The relation of revolution and integration, involving a twofold effort to overthrow an unjust order and then to reconstitute society on terms of equality and concord between the antecedent orders ruling and the subordinated classes, has long provoked controversy in Afro-American political thought. An exceptionally insightful analysis of this problematic relation appears in the political thought of the eminent 19th century abolitionist and integrationist Frederick Douglass. Yeah. Like... Douglass talked about the domination of black people by the state for being reliant on white people for their material existence. He was more radical than they want to admit. Of course, they do the same thing with Martin Luther King Jr. And by the way, Sean, Dumbfuckazias on Twitter, his video on the 1776 Project talked about this. How Prager University, Donald Trump, the Republicans in general, they'll take the writings of like black revolutionaries and they'll just completely twist their words only because they're now dead. Whereas if these figures were still alive, they would be calling them SJW libcucks, communists, America haters, etc., etc. But it's really only because they're dead that they get away with this. But I invite any PragerU fan. How do you feel about Prager University just lying to you? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, it's not just differences in opinions. It's that the way these videos are constructed, they just lie to you. Doesn't that make you feel weird? Like, if your positions were good, they should be able to, stand on their own a little bit?
Love, not to whites or blacks or anyone else. During his famous I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King referenced freedom 20 times. He never once spoke the word love. Why not?
What?
Because America has nothing to do with that. If you want love,
what is this
and we
love
all do,
fixation?
Look to God, your family, and your friends. The government doesn't love you and isn't supposed to.
Why does it, again, so the goal here is to conflate a humane social service program with love, by the way. Because they know that there are material benefits to having welfare programs and government support, instead they take all that and they boil it down to love. Like, people who collect checks from the government think the government loves them. This is some highly delusional shit, and it's actually some really strong projection, because it is in fact conservatives who love the state. Conservatives in PragerU and the like, they're the ones who worship the state, who worship the flag. They're the ones who believe that the state is like an apparatus designed to cater to their emotional needs. They're the one who make the state a father figure. And they project that onto people who just want a goddamn paycheck from the government because the economy is broke. This is really pathetic.
The government is a poor and abusive provider. It offers the bare minimum and fosters a dependency that undermines freedom. During the
Except countries with stronger welfare states also have greater economic mobility. Don't look that up. If you're a conservative, don't look that up, okay? It's very triggering. But countries with better welfare systems have higher economic mobility. People are more likely to move out of poverty with better welfare systems. Don't look that up. It'll be very upsetting to some people.
2020 Black Lives Matter season, NBA players actually
Black Lives Matter season? Okay.
wore jerseys with the slogan, "Love us," emblazoned on the back.
Based.
You can't demand love from people.
What?
Love
Wait.
is freely given.
Wait, weren't we talking about love from the state? Why are we talking about a fucking jersey logo now? What is the relationship between this? Are we just talking about love as a concept? What does this mean?
Or not given at all. Telling people not to call you this name or that name, or not to act this way or that way, consciously or unconsciously, because it offends you, will not bring you love.
Okay, then I'm going to refer to veterans, Republicans, conservatives, and every other group you like exactly how I want. By the way, this is from the political party who fielded a president who tried to get people deported for burning the flag. By the way.
Love is your mother's smile, or that look your kid gives you when you come home from work.
This is very
Love
weird.
is that man or woman who protects you when you're scared and provides a home where you can flourish. And love is what God offers you every moment of every day.
This is very weird.
To the government, you're just a social security number.
No,
nothing more.
Again, nobody is saying, also doxed, wow. Nobody is saying the government loves them. Where is this argument coming? I've never heard this from anyone.
I'm okay with that because I don't want or expect the government to know or care about me.
Cool.
Mostly, I want the government to leave me alone. I'm proud to be an American.
Well, wait, hold on. You want them to leave you alone, except you want them to protect property rights. To have cops around that defend people's businesses and homes and what have you. You want them to enforce the law, right? So you do want the police, at the very least, to have some sort of role in the functioning society. Okay. So if you believe, then, that the imposition of government force can actually increase your freedom, which I believe, by the way, making murder illegal and then enforcing that law does make society more free, would you not then argue there are other positive things the government could do to make everyone more free? Like, for example, a universal basic income. That way, people would be free to spend more of their free time pursuing things which interest them, or improving themselves, learning skills, talents, hobbies, vocations, going to night classes in college, rather than having to spend every waking minute working to survive. That would be an increase in freedom, would it not? Sure, people would have to pay taxes to sustain that universal basic income, but if we take a look at, say, for example, any real country that isn't just a collection of military industrial complexes and pharmaceutical companies contained by a border, you would find that welfare programs actually increase economic activity. Your country produces more wealth because people can educate themselves further, and educated workers are more productive. See?
And I'm proud to be a black man in America. Blacks have made enormous contributions.
Jason Whitlock, the guy talking, is a sports journalist, and this year called Black Lives Matter the same as the Ku Klux Klan. He also used to work for Outkick, crazy right-wing sports and political rag, and then left under some weird passive-aggressive term. Indie native Jason Whitlock, Black Lives Matter is no different from KKK, historian disagrees. You know what? I bet he's full of shit. Hey, Jason Whitlock, okay? You should put your commitment to the test, okay? And you should choose a family member that you love most. You seem to care very much about love, okay? And you should have them spend 1 week with BLM advocates and 1 week with Ku Klux Klan advocates, okay? You wouldn't take that up, would you? Because you know you're full of shit, don't you? Yeah, you know. Yeah, you know. People who say this shit know exactly how full of shit they are. Yeah. No. Absolute horseshit.
To this country. But let me tell you what our single greatest contribution has been. We have been this nation's moral conscience.
Black people?
Blacks have forced America to live up to its best ideals.
I believe this, but this is from... I'm pretty sure this language is taken directly from the, what's the project? The New York Times project? The 16... What is it? I always forget. I can't remember numbers. Come on, guys. Help me out here. The 1619 project. Is this not the language of the 1619 project? That the promises of America were a lie until black people forced them to uphold those promises? Isn't that literally the main thesis of the 1619 project? Yeah. Hold on. Can I see if I can... Well, we can't read the whole damn thing, but... Especially if it doesn't load. That definitely impedes our ability to... See, if the thing doesn't load, that makes it less likely that we'll be able to... Okay. The website down? Doesn't say it. Oh, there we go. Hold on. There we go. I think the word forced was actually used in the... No? Oh, it's somewhere in there. It's a huge document. We can go over it sometime in the future. But I'm pretty sure that language is taken directly. Whitlock on Colin Kaepernick. Ooh. Congrats on Colin Kaepernick, social media, the 1619 Project, and all the other woke warriors who made this dream a reality. Based! While 4/5 of white Americans and 2/3 of both Hispanics and Asian Americans say that the anthem made them feel positive, a much smaller 35% of black Americans share those emotions. Damn, I wonder why black people wouldn't be made to feel super positive from the national anthem. That's so crazy to me. I wonder how this guy felt about making fun of the results of this poll and then going on to say that black people have been America's moral conscience. How do you simultaneously believe that black people have been America's moral conscience, but then say black people don't like the national anthem? Must be something wrong with them. How do you... What? Why are conservatives like this? These are obvious logical contradictions. They trip over and over again. I wish I could find the beating heart of conservatism and scream into it until the cognitive dissonance just caused it to melt. This is obvious shit. It's so stupid. You know how like in movies and video games, enemies, like the enemy faction or enemy organization is like so obviously dumb or evil, and you think like, how do these people get the necessary members? How do these people get the organizational support? How do these people get all of the support they need to mount whatever campaign or organization? But then we have real life conservatives who are unironically as fucking stupid as just plainly on the face incorrect as any. This is like Team Rocket shit. Like, how? I'm genuinely asking. I do not know. Because Whitlock is there are contradictory statements in this video, there are contradictory statements in this and this, and I can believe maybe Whitlock's a grifter, got paid $50,000 for the speaking here. Great, fine, whatever. But there are people in the comment section who just agree with this. What is wrong with their brains? I genuinely want to know. The information here isn't culturally wrong. It's objectively wrong. The contradictions here would be evident to a robot with no understanding of human culture. Okay? But the people, they just like it. They don't think. I don't see the contradiction here. I know Tron Panda TKS. That's my point. You don't. You're not capable of it. The more I see stuff like this, holy shit, the more I'm gonna horseshoe theory myself into the position of like a 19th century eugenicist. Like, there's something wrong with the bumps in these people's skulls. Like, it has to be that. I don't know what else. There has to be some pressure fucking pressing down on a brain clump of theirs or something. I don't know. It's crazy to me. Oh God, I don't know what to do, guys. Guys, can you blue pill me for a second? Hope pill me for a second, please. Explain to me how conservatives can exist without just succumbing to this nihilistic belief that there's just no intellectual activity in these people. Please, 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 please. I need it. I need an injection of help right now. And this happens in every debate that I do too, man. Every debate that I do with conservatives and every debate that I do, these are like obvious. They don't think past one or two questions into their ideology. It's insane to me. People complain about liberals. Man, most liberal positions, you can at least run the dialogue tree a while down. Even defenders of capitalism. There are nuanced arguments in favor of it. I disagree with many of them, but there are arguments. But this conservative stuff is just inapproachable to me. It's all emotional. It's all emotional. As an advocate for reaching across the aisle, I want to believe, like, oh yeah, we just have some core disagreements, but I don't actually believe that there's a difference in what we believe. I just think that conservatives haven't developed, much like a child, they haven't developed the cognitive processes to think critically, so they just adopt whatever positions are most convenient for them to defend, like, some ad hoc, like, positions that they already know they should believe because they were told to. And that's it. There's no actual critical thinking involved. They just regurgitate the arguments that they hear. this study shows they're actually just stupider. Yeah. It is true that like a bunch of indicators for intelligence correlate negatively with conservatism. Like that is true across all income and racial groups. It's not like because this group or another. It's just being. And I don't think, by the way, it's a genetic thing. Like stupid people are more likely to be conservative. I just think that conservatism makes you stupid. It teaches you not to critically think. It numbs your brain. I don't know what else to do, guy. I'm so black-pilled on this shit, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. Are they essentially stupid or it just causes it? No. I think it causes it. I do not think that stupidity makes people conservative. I fundamentally reject that. Some people are brighter than others, and that's life. I do not think that's what makes people conservative. The world is not made bad through dumb people. It's made bad through evil people. I think that conservatism makes people stupid. I think it causes people to be stupid.
Sounds good. Let's go.
We don't just see it with conservatives. Well, we don't just see it with American conservatives either. Tankies fit in the exact same purview. Every time I have a conversation with like a tankie, they're a fucking lunatic. I'm sure they were perfectly intelligent at some point in time, and maybe in many ways other than their political beliefs they are, but they just, you know, it's just something causes those faculties to stop functioning. Are we done? I can't do anymore. Finish this point.
Our righteous pursuit of freedom, not love, compel this nation to seek and find its better self.
Okay.
It's been a long, hard road, but we're close to Dr. King's promised land.
Oh my God. I can't. All right. We have to stop. We have to stop. I can't do it.
What's up?
Hey, what's up?
Okay, how are you?
Wait, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Cool. All right, give your name and pronouns to the chat. They care a lot.
Andrew is fine, and him.
Gotcha. Okay, let's get into it. Do you mind if I update everyone on what it is we're going to be talking about? Like, sort of briefly run them through it?
Sure.
You're a real terror.
All right.
If I have to correct, I'll correct if it's necessary.
Yeah, okay, don't worry. Real neutral-like. Okay, so, No Name did some tweets that I didn't like, so I said, wokely segregating my socialist movement. Wokely. And then went on to explain why I said that, more or less. And then we got quote tweeted by our fine Andrew over here, and we looked at that on stream. We said some very mean things about Andrew and No Name, which I'm sure we're about to be held to account for. And yeah, that's why we're here. That was pretty neutral, right? I mean, I don't think I poisoned the well too much on that one.
Not this time.
All right. So, what do you have in mind?
Well, I have some notes prepared so we could sort of keep on topic. I think that you took issue with two major things on that stream on, was it Monday? I think it was Monday. And that was No Name's argument on its own, as well as my dissection of both your response and also her argument. So before we start going over either, there is one point that I want to go over because it's a point that I know that I initially misunderstood. And it's a point that I don't want this discussion to get hung up on for an hour and a half.
Okay.
So I'll explain why I misunderstood it as well. So, as you pointed out on that stream, you said that I misinterpreted the purpose of my and the structure of your tweet because you attempted to speak in No Name's voice or whatever, correct?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would use quotation marks for that sort of joke structure, but I understand the error I made there. However, I think that it was a reasonable interpretation to make, and I'll explain why I guess if you want to respond to that first, you could go ahead.
Oh, I feel like it's a fairly common joke structure. The only way you could misinterpret it is if you unironically believe that I believe in segregation, which I guess a lot of people on Twitter probably do, but I don't believe in segregation, so that wasn't a point that I was trying to defend.
Okay, so I'll explain why I believe that misinterpretation was fairly reasonable. I'm not sure if you remember this, but past month, you've been going through this tanky arc, and you have said before in talking about these people that they are hurting your movement. And personally, I agree to some extent, because I believe that, for example, Reddit is a potential place for introductory radical education, and a lot of subreddits on Reddit are monopolized by genocide deniers, so that's not good. So I guess that's why I initially assumed that you were saying your movement, because you have made that statement in the past. You understand?
Sure. I mean, when I say my movement in regards to tankies, that would be because I am a socialist and they are not. So, I mean, like, broadly, because I'm not what they are. I don't know how legitimate I would consider no-name socialism. I certainly hope I'd consider it more legitimate than the tankies that I've been debating. But I'm not...
I mean, she's new to socialism, so she's still in the process. And I mean, I've seen some things where, it looks as if she's edging towards Marxist-Leninism, but I tend to extend some courtesy for people who are new to it, considering how Marxist-Leninism tends to dominate online leftist discussion.
Yeah, well, that'd be very unfortunate, but that does seem to be the easiest path to go down. It's the path of least resistance. I think it takes very little critical analysis of the world and of material conditions outside of disliking America. Which is, I mean, admittedly based. Disliking America, good stuff, but I don't think that in and of itself is the basis of radical political action. That plus some stuff that No Name said in the past, like, why are white people complaining about my tweets? This isn't for you. It kind of feels like she might be
not exactly what she said, but
well, I don't remember the exact language, but it was certainly something in that ballpark. It feels
we'll get to that.
Right. It just feels like she's leaning into this weird, like, exclusionary or like everyone has to stay in their own lane type thing, which I've seen a lot of online and I am very critical of.
Okay, I think that's something we'll eventually get to. Another point that you made, I think it was also a misinterpretation, but it's a misinterpretation that you made that I understand why you would make it because of the structure of that sentence. And that is where I said, I think I said something along the lines of, not just because you're a streamer who does little organizing IRL. I think I had said that sentence. I think that was like my third tweet in that thread.
Yeah. So wait, I want to be clear about this, okay? Usually when a person uses a line like this, I stop taking them seriously because, and I'm sure any reasonable person can admit to this, the extent to which you can assist in a political movement is not gate-kept exclusively by IRL organizing. Especially since I reach millions of people with my platform, my time online is actually infinitely more efficiently spent than anything I could do in real life. I mean, now, going to a soup kitchen would be good for the photo op, I mean, it'd be good. I do good work there. I mean, it's important to do that work. But in terms of the actual consequential output of what I'm capable of doing, it's pretty obvious that a computer screen is where I get most of my work done. But sometimes people will try to use that against me, like, oh, you don't even do IRL organizing, which isn't even true. I have plenty in the past, but I don't talk about it because it just comes off like I'm bragging or deflecting. Like, it's like a non-answerable thing. Like, do I show photo albums of me at, like, juvie or prisons, like, doing work or, like, talking with kids or fundraising? And it just feels like I'm competing with people, you know what I mean? And
I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, and so just to get back to why I made that statement, it was less, I mean, I'm a YouTuber personally, so it's not the streaming aspect of it that I take issue with. Yes, the issue that I took with it is the lack of IRL organizing, because I think that provides, sure, reaching people is important, but IRL organizing provides tremendous benefits in terms of perspective that you may not get, on the internet. And for example, I mean, No Name also has a large platform, and she's currently building a library and a community center for organizing efforts in the area. And personally, I feel that with your massive resources, you're capable of doing similar. You know, you can announce it on stream, you get book donations, that sort of thing, or you could just reach out to people who are doing underground work and direct resources that way.
Well, sure.
And
I have
I'm happy to
people.
hear that you do that work. I mean, I saw that recently you had donated some of your funds to that Hippy Dippy Championship guy because he was homeless. I think.
A lot of people don't see this because all they see is like the debates that I do. But not only do I have organizers, activists, and politicians on my stream, and I promote their work all the time, but I do donate to other charitable causes. Like sometimes I'll just scroll through on Twitter and find like trans people who need money for surgery and just drop 500 like anonymously on them. I've raised tens of thousands of dollars for the BLM Bail Fund initiative back late last year, and I've been pretty like open and vocal about my desire to do canvassing for like a progressive or socialist candidate in the upcoming 2022 elections. But like you have to admit, normally when people bring up the IRL organizing thing, it's just kind of like a dig. The impression is that I'm just like a armchair activist who doesn't do anything, and that you delegitimize me by not doing IRL work. When, to be fair, a lot of the people who levy that criticism have themselves done no work. I think it's an ideation of the aesthetic of activism, because the aesthetic of activism is being on the ground with a pamphlet or a clipboard in your hand, running around talking to people. And that's good work, but that's not the only way to do activism. And in my case, it's the least efficient way. So it's a criticism that I'm very suspicious of, to say the least.
Okay, I mean, I think I still stand with my point, and I think that I know it's weird to say, hey, look at me, I'm doing XYZ work at this place, or I'm donating XYZ amount, but I think making that visible would be important. I know it's kind of awkward, but with such a large platform, because that could also encourage other people who are watching you to go ahead and do the same thing.
People would just find clips of it and say, oh, Vosh thinks that he can compensate for his years of anti-black rigor by saying he donated X and Y. I don't think there's a win in this. I just think it's aesthetic posturing, especially since I do publicly engage in this kind of stuff. I mean, God, when I do canvassing work, how many tens of thousands of dollars will I be spending out of pocket to fund for people to travel and pay for their accommodations and hotel rooms and stuff? It's going to be an enormous expense, but I guarantee you, not a single person online who doesn't like me right now will be swayed by the effort that I put into that sort of thing. I don't know.
But that effort is going into electoral organizing.
Which is infinitely more important.
Electoral organizing.
Right, which right now is infinitely more important than whatever the fuck Twitter lefties think they're doing by screaming about mutual aid orgs and then not actually doing anything with them, I would say.
Disagree. But I don't expect to move you on this, so...
Right. No, we need more electoral support in this country. A second Trump term would have been disastrous. The more we do to consolidate power in the House and the Senate, the more likely we are to be able to freely organize. It's very important we at least have that buffer, that safety net, you know?
Is it really a safety net, though? But
yes,
anyway.
It absolutely is. Wait, if we had one less blue senator in the Senate right now, there would probably be tens of thousands more deaths in the coming years. Yeah. When Biden's infrastructure bill passes, people who would otherwise...
I'm not saying the Democrats are, like, there aren't benefits to voting for Democrats or Republicans. I'm just saying, we can't do the less evil thing forever. Right? I'm not here to talk about...
You should always do the least evil thing. That's tautological. You should always do the least evil. And sometimes the least evil is sucking it up and making sure that literal fascists don't control the federal government.
You know what? Whatever. We're not here to talk about electoral politics anyway, so...
Right.
So you made a series of accusations against me in that segment. You called me pro-segregation, anti-black, and anti-white. And you also claimed that I wanted to start a race war.
I
somehow.
Sure did throw those ones
hills
out
you're
there.
willing to die on, or would you like to apologize?
We can go over the tweets. I can give you... I mean, there was no denying that I was, like, hyperbolic with my language, but the underlying sentiment is something that I'll defend. If I could go over the tweets and explain why.
Sure, let's go over them one by one.
Yeah. So one of the issues that I have, and I've noticed this during the Tanky arc, is that unfortunately there were a lot of people of color who believe that, like, black liberation or whatever is going to come by ostracizing white people from the movement. Now, many of them won't admit to this, but they are, at the same time, very aggressive and very performatively exclusionary to white people in their movement. It's always a set of preconditions. If white people are to be here, they need to do or be X and Y. There's a higher bar, a standard that needs to be passed, which to my mind is really counterproductive. It also keeps us from recruiting because, like, if we're trying to get, you know, liberals or, like, centrists over to the left, they see the left and they're like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to unironically, like, apologize for my race to be in here, you know? I find that behavior really frustrating, which is why I throw out the woke segregation thing. There are also some prominent personalities who push this a little more directly, though admittedly, for the most part, it's kept implicit. First of all, y'all need to keep woke out y'all mouth. So, I could be wrong here. Does y'all mean white people? Because the rest of that tweet is dichotomized between the y'all and black folks. Is that, I assume you're saying white people shouldn't say woke.
Well, I don't think that white people, I don't think that white people necessarily are like banned from the word woke. What I think is that a lot of white people use woke in a very negative context, and it's very frustrating considering the history of the term.
But it's the y'all here is white people, I assume, because it says y'all need to keep woke out of your mouth, and then anytime black folks. So that's the dichotomy. I mean, unless you mean like white, Asian, Latin, and indigenous people, but I assume you mean white people here. Hello?
Yes.
So you mean white people? Did you say? I didn't
Yes.
hear if you. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, the second tweet has been addressed, the Your Socialist Movement thing, so there's no need to linger on that. And then we have existing movements from Rojava to EZLN to...
Hold on.
Huh?
Let's check on the woke segregation bit for a second.
Oh, sure.
Because I don't think it's understood why I would make such a statement.
But yeah, go for it.
One of the first uses of the term "stay woke" was by a Black American folk singer. I think his name was Lead Belly or something like that. And he'd use it at the end of a song where he was telling the story of 9 black teenagers who were accused of raping 2 white women. He says, "I advise everybody be a little careful when they go along through there. Best stay woke, keep their eyes open." It's long been used to be aware of racially motivated threats and the potential dangers of white America. It was a song written during segregation. And I mean, it was also used to reference guarding against infidelity or literally staying awake, but it's always had a pretty distinctly political character.
Right.
Segregation was a very violent period in American history, and it certainly was not enacted by black people, sorry. So I think and black people were the ones barred from workers' unions. You know, they were harassed and assaulted and killed and thrown into prison, so on and so forth. So I think it is very, very disgusting, very irresponsible, very anti-black to invoke segregation so flippantly against black people.
No, I don't think I agree with that. I think that just because black people have been a victim of segregation in the past, and today, to be fair, doesn't mean that you can't accuse black people of engaging in language which promotes segregation. So, for example, there are black people on Twitter, and to be fair, we're talking a minority of a minority. We're not talking like all black people or anything like that, but there are some black people on Twitter who will say that they don't like race mixing because to dilute the black blood, you know, to subject a mixed race child to one white
We don't
parent.
need to talk about this.
Right. So what they're doing then is they're using...
It's irrelevant though.
Well, I'm just trying to explain like the way this language works. The woke there, the progressive intent, is then leading people towards segregationist conclusions. So that's the reason why I've used that term, because you've horseshoe theory. You have segregationists over on the right, but then through progressivism, you loop some people, not all, very, very small number of people, loop all the way around to the other side, and now they're promoting essentially the same talking points. Marcus Garvey is a good example of that. He worked with the Ku Klux
Marcus Garvey
Klan.
was a fascist. I'm
Yeah,
aware.
right.
I did a video on Pan-Africanism. I'm aware.
Yeah, but a lot of people promote him as a supporter of black rights, including, and I could be wrong, didn't No Name talk about Garvey at one point in a positive light, or am I misremembering? I think I might actually remember that. because it sounds progressive, doesn't it? Garvey was so radical and so revolutionary that he didn't even think white and black people could live in the same country. He wanted them to go back and go build a